Well, good evening and welcome to our April 23rd regular City Council meeting. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mayor Hartke,
Here.
Vice Mayor Lopez,
Here.
Councilmember Stewart,
Here.
Councilmember McClymonds,
Here.
Councilmember Wong,
Yeah.
Councilmember Rowe,
Here.
Councilmember Orlando.
Here.
We have a quorum.
So I will be giving the invocation. Councilmember Stewart, the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm soliciting future invocators. If any of you would like to do this next time, please reach out to me. Join me in prayer. Lord God, again, we thank you for the opportunity to meet tonight. We ask for your wisdom and thank you for your many blessings upon our community. We pray and reach out to those who are struggling both economically and physically from the impact of this virus on our community. We pray that our actions tonight will be both judicious and help alleviate the concerns, the frustrations, and others in our community. So Lord, we do again ask you to bless our decisions. We seek your wisdom and thank you for the opportunity to gather and lead tonight. I ask all these things in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember. Council, tonight we've got 24 items on a consent agenda, one action item, and a briefing. There are a couple of additional information sheets that were provided based on questions from Monday or other things. Unless anyone has any additional questions, a motion would be appropriate right now.
Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, I want to make a comment first, and then I'll make a motion. So I just wanted to also thank that today we will be on item number 8, boards and commission appointees. We have a pretty extensive list out there, so I want to extend my thank you and gratitude for our community, for those individuals willing to step forward and sit on many of our boards and commissions. It's because of them that we continue to keep Chandler running one of the best run cities in the United States. So with that, I would like to move for approval of our consent agenda for the regular meeting of Thursday, April 23rd.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I think I heard Councilmember Orlando first. So we have a, all right, he's conceding. We'll give that to Councilmember McClymonds. Any additional comments? All right, Council, please vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. Council, next on our agenda is item number 25. It was on consent on Monday. We moved this to action. And City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure how you want to
Let's
handle
have,
this item.
Let's have a presentation from our staff, please. We can call then our speakers up and have comments to both our staff and police, comments of the two gentlemen that are here, and then we can converse.
All right. Well, Danielle Wells is here. She had presented to you on Monday. I think she has some answers to specific questions that were asked, and then we'll get the chief up.
Mayor and Council,
Proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. I wanted to present today the liquor license process for the Series 6 liquor license for El Nuevo Coyote LLC. That's item number 25. I'll go through the regular presentation that we went over on Monday and then provide additional details if I may. We received the liquor license application from the Department of Liquor on January 24th, 2020. The application also showed that there was an interim liquor license requested at that time. An interim liquor is a conditional permit that allows the establishment to continue to serve alcohol until they receive approval for their own. And this actually can be canceled at any time by the Department of Liquor if they see cause. The city, as the local governing body, can provide our recommendation on the applicant's personal qualifications, and in this case, not to the location, because we've already approved a Series 6 liquor license at this establishment for the prior owner. So we can only review for the applicant's personal qualifications. The applicant bears the responsibility to prove that they're reliable, capable, and qualified, and the best interest of the community will be served by the issuance of the license. We posted a copy on January 29th of the liquor license application and our 11 by 17 poster board on the establishment in a conspicuous place in front of the business, allowing any resident or anybody that owns property within that mile radius to file written argument in favor of or in opposition to. We didn't receive anything at this time. I did want to also mention that during that protest period, that's the city's solicitation for a written comment. If that is expired, there still is an opportunity for any protests or for or against the liquor license to go to the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control. So there's still that opportunity as well. We also inquired if there's an entertainment use permit needed from our development services, and we did not need one at this time. We also requested recommendation from the police department, and on April 13th, we received a recommendation for denial. This was based on the executive order by the governor that was issued on March 19th to have the bars closed. There was an incident at the establishment on the 21st. The Chandler Police Department was there with the owners. The chief of police will provide a presentation with a little bit more detail on what occurred at the incident. Subsequently, on March 26th, the interim liquor license was canceled by the Department of Liquor License and Control. We gathered input based on the violations from that incident. We gathered this input from the departments and prepared our recommendation to Mayor and Council. We're recommending disapproval at this time due to the qualifications of the applicant based on the police department's recommendation, as the applicant didn't demonstrate that they were qualified during that interim period. If disapproval is recommended, the hearing would be held at the Department of at the Arizona Liquor Board. The hearing would be there, and the city would be able to support our recommendation. In addition to any of our recommendations, they would also hear any other protests from other parties. The Department of Liquor License and Control is also providing a protest at that time. The board would then hear arguments and then grant or deny the liquor license. If it's denied, the liquor applicant can appeal. They have appeal rights beyond that. If it ultimately results in denial, the Department of Liquor will not allow the applicant to apply for a liquor license anywhere for a year. Are there any additional questions before I turn it over to the chief's presentation?
Council, any questions?
Mayor,
Councilmember Stewart.
you had said something about applicants, I don't know, about 2 or 3 paragraphs back about their qualifications.
Yep.
And so is it standard practice? Who normally determines qualifications?
We gather the input from our development services, the police department, and then review that. And in this case, the qualifications were based on the recommendation from the police department, violations that occurred during that time in that incident.
Okay.
And so we
So
based our recommendation on supporting the police department's recommendation.
You based your recommendation based on what the police department recommended to you? Okay. And so what are the specific parameters for qualification?
I don't have a list of specifics. It's,
Oh, well, what was the
just-
metric that was used to measure against saying that this was met and this wasn't? What did we use for that?
We don't have a guideline such as that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember McClymons and Councilmember Wong.
So this is my first consideration for denial of liquor license, and I don't think there's one that's happened in a decade plus. So I do want to understand, before we dig into everything else, the ramifications of the vote. So we vote for denial. That plays out just like you explained. if you vote against it and it passed where we're not denying, what would happen then? How does it play out from there?
Okay, and then through the mayor, Councilmember McClymans, yes. We would if we recommended approval to the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control, they would hear that recommendation and also any additional protests. So if there was any other protests, like the Department of Liquor License and Control is also providing one, they would hear that as well. So we would not have the opportunity to go and provide our there would be no automatic hearing in that particular case. We would not go, if you will. We would just base the recommendation for approval and then
So,
see what
so
happens.
if it was voted down, that effectively becomes an approval?
Yes, correct. We would, yes, exactly. We could do that. And then just really quickly, the last denial that we had was 2007. We did do a little bit of research on that. So it's been a bit for denial. Yeah.
Councilmember Wong.
Could you elaborate a little bit about, I heard you were talking about if we deny it or it got denied by the State Department, this restaurant won't be able to apply for 8 other years?
So, correct, through the mayor, Councilmember Huang, yes. So if it ultimately resulted in denial after all the appeal rights had been exhausted, then the applicant, because we're basing our recommendation on the applicant only, would not be able to apply anywhere for 1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
So I hear you wrong. I heard you talking about 8 years. Only 1 year, right?
Just one. I
Oh, okay.
apologize. Yes, one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Lopez.
On the regulation, it'd be some similar to our entertainment permits that we do with time limits and checks and balances and all that. Are liquor licenses something similar to that where it could be, like they did a temporary license during transition, sounds like, but is there also in the books or to do a recommendation for a temporary license extension or something to say instead of it being a full-on license? I don't know if there's provisions for the state to do temporary licenses like that.
Through the mayor, Councilmember or Vice Mayor Lopez, there is not a temporary license, correct?
So question I have is, if indeed that they're granted by the state a liquor license, what's the duration of that? Is that 3 years, or how long do those go?
Until they, through the mayor, yes, until they,
Until it's rescinded?
yeah, until they close or
Or
they want
sell.
to transfer the license to another
Okay.
person, that kind of thing, yeah, correct.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilmember Orlando.
I'd like to question the city attorney.
Okay.
So I understand what they're doing. They were giving interim liquor license here. But can this body recommend an extension to that interim license, like a license for, say, 6 months to a year? Or, I mean, my point is, what's our recommendation? It's not a yes/no answer here. We could recommend an alternative solution, correct?
Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Orlando, you could make the recommendation. The Department of Liquor does not have,
Right.
they're the ones with jurisdiction, and it's either a grant of a license or a denial of a license. And as Ms. Wells said, that goes on until it's either revoked or canceled in some manner. I don't believe the Department of Liquor License takes city council recommendations on the interim licensing.
Whether they do or not, that's not the question. The question is, can this body make a different recommendation than a yes/no answer?
Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Orlando, you can make that recommendation. The ramifications are, it's not within
Got it.
the purview, the Department of Liquor License is going to either issue or deny.
Thank you, ma'am.
Vice Mayor.
So you mentioned about a revocation, so and that's another interesting, so we haven't had a denial in Chandler for 13 years, but and we're going to dive into some of the history behind the barn. There have been some issues previously, but prior to the owners now. But have we also, and there's a avenue for us to recommend revoking if a establishment is not abiding by, nor it seems to be a unsafe place for our community?
I can, if you would like, through the mayor, Vice Mayor Lopez, there is a revocation process that the Department of Liquor License and Control has, and they would be the body that would go through the revocation process. So they would work with the police department and themselves and investigators, and there is a revocation process beyond, but it wouldn't be from Chandler, it would be from Department of Liquor, that body to do that.
So if we wanted to, we could initiate it, but again, it would be the state commission
Exactly.
that would be acting on it.
Right, right.
Do we even have a role in initiation, or is that their role to initiate revocation?
Mayor, that's a good question. I believe that we could initiate something like that, or we could provide additional information to them.
Yeah.
And additionally, we could provide, some of the comments, and if we did deny the license and we did have a hearing, we would be at the hearing as well and providing some of these recommendations and kind of, for example, like a temporary and those types of things. We could at least speak to that if there's a hearing.
Again, council, what's before us today is a simple recommendation to deny or not do the same. There's no conversation of anything beyond that at this point. Any additional questions for Danielle before we call up our police chief? You can ask her afterwards as well, if need be. Councilmember Rowe.
I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I have a 2019 call log basic summary. Who produced that? How did we get that?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Rowe, I don't know where that came from.
Mayor.
City manager.
Rowe, I understand the applicant actually put that together and did email that over earlier.
All right,
Oh, okay, yes, that's what that is.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions for Chief?
You need me to come back?
Oh, I'm also asking, please use a wipe and clean the area when you're done. You're off the hook, Danielle.
He does that really well.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. So as what was already stated was just highlighting some of the sequencing here. So the El Coyote Bar, the owners applied for a liquor application and an interim permit was issued in the end of January. But from February 1st through March 21st, we had responded to the El Coyote Bar 10 times in that relatively short duration. And the majority of those calls were disturbance related, fights, assaults, and disorderly people inside the bar. And of those calls, 10 calls, of the 10 calls, 2 of those calls resulted in arrests. So a total of 2 arrests and 10 calls in that time period. But what I'd like to focus on tonight is to discuss the events on March 21st, which was the day after the governor's executive order went into effect, mandating that all bars close. So what I'd like to do is just spend a minute and read some excerpts from a police report that was authored by Lieutenant John LaBerge, one of our, the senior lieutenant in the city. And then that night he was acting as watch commander, so he was the highest ranking official in the city. And I'll just read some parts of that. But also, I would like to highlight the fact that all of this encounter that evening was recorded on a video camera, and I had an opportunity to watch all the recordings from that evening. So on that night, March 21st, around 9:30 at night, Lieutenant Burge was in routine patrol in his marked police car. He's driving down Arizona Avenue, and he saw 3 males knocking on the front door of El Coyote Bar. So this drew his attention because all bars were to be closed. So he pulled into the parking lot and he walked up and he approached the 3 subjects at the front door, and he essentially asked them what they were doing. And one of them replied, "We're trying to go to the bar," was the quote. He then informed him that the bar should be closed, but then one of the subjects stated, "Well, there are people inside and security told us to go to the back door, but it's locked." Lieutenant stated that he can hear music from inside, and all the lights were on, and the interior lights were on. He then went and checked the front door himself, and the door was locked. He knocked, and no one responded. He then went around to the back, which is the east side of the building, and he encountered two other males that were standing at the door. And again, he asked them what they were doing, and he said that they were told to go through the back door. So at that point, Lieutenant walked around to the north side of the door, north side of the building. And that's when he observed four other men standing in the parking lot next to the business door. And one of them was wearing a black shirt with the word security stenciled on the back and front. And then there was a second male there who was later identified as Mr. Hoover, one of the owners. And he walked up to the lieutenant and asked him what was going on. Well, obviously at that time, the lieutenant didn't know who Mr. Hoover was, and he directed his attention to the man wearing the security shirt. So he focused on the gentleman wearing the security shirt, and he asked him why the bar was open. And according to the lieutenant, he played dumb, saying that he didn't know what he was talking about. And then he went on to deny that he was an employee of the bar. The lieutenant asked him about the shirt, and his response was, "It's just a shirt." At that point, other officers had arrived, and they went back to the front door of the bar, and they knocked on the bar for a number of minutes. The music stopped, and then a gentleman came to the front door, and he was later identified as Alex Castillo, and he's one of the owners. So Lieutenant spoke with Alex and explained why they were there, and explained that there was a violation of the governor's executive order, and that the bars were not supposed to operate because of the pandemic. At that point, Mr. Castillo responded and saying that the bar was not open, but rather they were holding a private party for family and friends. He went on to say that he was not aware of the executive order because he had just returned from Mexico earlier in the day. At that point, Lieutenant LaBerge tried to enter the door, which was open, and at that point, Mr. Castillo stepped in front of the lieutenant, blocking his path. The other officers on scene immediately intervened and warned Mr. Castillo to step aside. He did, and the three officers entered the bar. Inside the bar, the officers observed about 35 people, and most everyone had some sort of alcohol beverage in front of them or in their possession. The lieutenant approached the bartender and asked her if she was aware of the governor's order, and she said yes. Officers then informed everyone inside the bar that they were in violation of the order and they were to leave. Lieutenant LaBerge just then turned from the bar and walked back to the front door where he spoke with Mr. Hoover and Mr. Castillo and the subject who was wearing the security shirt. He then tried to explain to Mr. Castillo that it did not matter how he categorized the event, that because it was a licensed business establishment, he was mandated to follow the law, and which includes not locking any of the doors while patrons are inside. But both Mr. Hoover and Mr. Castillo were argumentative, and according to Lieutenant LaBerge, Mr. Hoover became belligerent and antagonistic by continually diverting from the subject, stating it was a private gathering with no money transaction. While they're having this discussion, patrons are leaving, and at least 3 patrons approached police officers inside the bar, asking them if they would get their $20 back, stating that they all paid $20 cover charge to enter the bar. Well, that essentially ended the discussion with the bar owners. Lieutenant LaBerge went on to explain that he wanted voluntary compliance and they weren't going to cite anyone. Officers then remained on scene until all the bar patrons left, and a short time later, they observed the male who was originally wearing the security shirt returning money to patrons. This is the same person initially denied being employed by the bar. So our report then was completed and forwarded to the Department of Liquor, which is required by law, and they subsequently revoked their temporary liquor license on March 26th. So factoring in the volume of disturbing calls, but essentially the encounter on that evening of March 21st and the deceptive and uncooperative behavior demonstrated by ownership, it is the police department's suggestion that that a liquor license is not issued to the applicants.
Council, any questions for the chief?
Chief,
Councilmember Stewart.
thank you, Mayor. Chief, have you ever recommended a denial of license in the past?
Probably a dozen times, but not in the city. Not since
in
I've been the
Chandler.
chief in Chandler, but I have many times in my past employment.
Yeah. Where would this rank in terms of like recommendation? What I'm understanding is that there were some lies as it relates to what happened. They broke the law according to the executive order. Whether it's constitutional or not will be determined later. But there was I guess the deeper part of my question is like, is that the primary reason that you're recommending, or is it the 13 calls and this incident?
Well, the 10 calls certainly are an area of concern, but the primary area of concern is the level of deceptiveness upon the applicants. And these are people that we are supposed to have a trustworthy relationship with. And the fact that not allowing, attempting not to allow our officers to enter the bar, which is another violation of the law. Any police officer is authorized to enter any bar while they're serving alcohol to do inspections. So just that blatant act right there is very severe. And then the constant untruthfulness throughout the entire encounter is a area of great concern and an indication of behavior, I believe, moving forward.
Chief, a week later, there was an advertisement on social media to put out. How did the city concerning El Coyote sponsoring another event? What do you know the details of that and how we handled that?
I can speak just superficially to that. There was a Facebook post advertising a party, and it was advertised as a private party at a residence in the proximity of El Coyote. I can't recall the exact address, but certainly a number of concerns there. But the most obvious concern there was this is at a time when all the experts and the governor is suggesting social distancing and not gathering in groups of more than 10 people. And then there was there were people, the applicants, actually suggesting that they're going to hold a party. So that was one concern for essentially all public safety. But that did not play out. I know that agents from the Department of Liquor License and Control reached out to the promoters of that and had a conversation, and that party did not occur.
Mayor, code enforcement actually responded on that, so Leah Powell can answer your question directly if you would like.
Okay. Leah, could you please? Thanks for cleaning the table, Chief.
Mayor, members of the council, that is correct that code enforcement did respond. We were asked to provide some educational information. So Stephen Erno did that. We first looked on Facebook to get the details of what the event was planned. Mr. Erno did give them a call. He spoke with one of the owners and was told at the time that it was, again, a private function. When he called to their attention the fact that it was posted on Facebook and appeared to be a public event because of the way that it was posted on Facebook, shortly after that, we checked Facebook again and the event had been removed.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions? Councilmember Orlando.
So Chief, depends how you categorize these. You have 10 to 12 incidents in a less than a 2-month period under the new ownership. How does this compare to the old ownership? Is it about on par? Is it less, more percentage-wise, or have this been a constant?
I would have to go back and look at that 6-week period, that 7-week period. But I can tell you that compared to the liquor establishment directly across the street, during that exact same period, they had 4 calls for service with no arrest, and this establishment right across the street had 10 calls for service and 2 arrests.
So I guess the argument, we'll wait for the applicant, is going to be used, we're trying to improve this process, but if it's continuation of the behaviors and attitudes, I guess I'm questioning whether this improved the process or not.
And there's 2 points to convey: that there is a continuation documented, and there is a new level of deceit.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Any additional comments? Okay. Thank you, Chief. At this point, we've got, I believe, both applicants that are here, and I know I'll give between you 6 minutes for presentation and as much Q&A as is asked by council. So I don't know if you one at a time or if one of you wants to be the speaker, but state your name and come up to the dais, state your name and address for the record when you come up, please. And if we could put a clock on that too, please.
My name is Alejandro Castillo, address 320 West Oak Street, Nogales, Arizona, 85621. Good afternoon, esteemed mayor, vice mayor, and city council members. Like I said, my name is Alejandro Castillo, and this is my partner, Sean Hoover. We are the new owners of El Coyote Sports Bar. My goal in our speech today is to explain and show that we are first-time business owners that are reliable, credible, qualified, and are serving in the best interest of the community, and are requesting to have our license recommended. I hope an email that we sent out a week ago found each of you well. To summarize a little bit about myself and my partner, Sean Hoover has been a Chandler resident since he was born. His entire family has owned homes here in Chandler, and he recently purchased 2 homes here in Chandler, going to Corona del Sol High School and attending Mesa Community College. I was born and raised here in Tempe, and I graduated from Valley Christian High School here in Chandler. I also attended Arizona State University. Sean and I met and became best friends in 2008 while umpiring baseball. We both worked together in professional baseball for 2 years, where we've continued to work Little League, high school baseball, travel baseball, and now currently work college baseball together. Sean and I also have worked together for several years at the Hawthorne Suites here in Chandler. We were respectively the area general manager and also the area sales director. Along with our full-time hours at our business, Sean is the current general manager at the Hawthorne Suites in Tempe, and I'm a licensed process server here in the state of Arizona. As I said, we are first-time business bar owners. We were very excited to purchase this bar because it was here in Chandler. Chandler is exactly where we wanted to start our roots and start our business. Our number one priority is to develop a great partnership with the city of Chandler, with the Chandler Police, and also with the community that we live in. The purchase of the business was a huge headache, as I stated in our email. There were many problems and many issues. It took us almost 14 months to be able to close on this property. There were tax issues at the city, state, and also the federal level, and there was also liquor board violations. Under the previous ownership, the business has now not only become a liability to the city, but has also been known as a thorn in the side of the Chandler Police. Our goal when purchasing the business was to be able to put Chandler residents to work and to generate revenue that will stay here in the city of Chandler. This is the only Hispanic bar in the city of Chandler. Along with it being the only bar in Chandler, it is the only Hispanic bar within a 12-mile radius. With the few modifications that we've already done in remodeling of the property, we've already seen the increase of patrons from neighboring cities, coming all the way from West Phoenix to come and visit us, and including including Gilbert and Mesa. Sean and I have been actively involved in the community since we were.
Alejandro, are you speaking for both?
Yes, I'm going
Okay.
to do the speaking for both.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. We've been involved in our community since at a young age. We have donated time and money to different organizations, including the Phoenix Union School District, Fort McDowell Parks and Rec, Toys for Tots, Chicanos por la Causa, Chandler Little League, Gilbert National Little League, the VFW, and the American Legion. We have both always been good law-abiding citizens, good neighbors, and have clean criminal records. In the summer of 2018, when we were working at the Hawthorne Suites in Chandler, Chandler Police Detective, now Sergeant, Ron Kelly, had come and asked for our help to conduct an undercover sting operation for drugs and prostitution at our hotel. We were more than happy to provide any information, IDs, and help in anything that we could during his investigation. According to Sergeant Kelly, the investigation led to more than 5 arrests. Our goal is to continue to help the city, the residents, and the police with anything we can do, with an end goal of becoming the most upstanding bar in Chandler. We're in the process of joining the Chamber of Commerce with the help of Lori Schroeder. During the shutdown, Sean and I have made extreme efforts to improve the training program and to ensure employees have proper updated training liquor certifications and ongoing education. To assist in accomplishing this, we have hired Arizona liquor industry consultants as our exclusive training and liquor license agent. This will include all bartender, server training, management training, and security training. We are currently in the process of getting our kitchen back open and to be able to offer food, offer a new logo and a new color scheme. But unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 epidemic, our timeline has been forced to be pushed back. COVID-19 is something the city, state, and country has never faced. As we explained to Vice Mayor Lopez during our meeting that we had, according to the website, when the mayor declared an emergency on March 19, Section 3 of the order stated that public gatherings such as bars, clubs, libraries, gyms, and other places where groups in excess of 10 people congregate were urged to take measures to implement social distancing. During the event on March 21st, that was what we read according to the city's website, and that's what our understanding was. We had a private party on the books for 2 months before for a private birthday party that was not open to the public. As we explained to the officers that arrived, that was the same thing. We're not trying to be deceitful. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. When the lieutenant arrived, he came to the front door, spoke with me, explained to me what he was doing. And no time did he explain to me he was trying to come in the door, he kind of took a step forward to me. So my natural reaction was to take a step backwards because I didn't want to make contact with the lieutenant. The lieutenant still took a step forward and made contact with me. Brushed up against my shoulder, and when our normal beat officer that we have a very good relationship with came in and said, "Alex, he's trying to get in, you can't block him from getting in." Oh, I thought he was trying to make contact with me, so I didn't want to cause any issue with him or have an issue with the Chandler police. In conclusion, I just want to say that Sean and I are qualified, credible, and upstanding citizens and members of the community. Along with both being reliable and qualified as bar owners, we have the proper training and support from a very credible alcohol consulting company. And lastly, we're good for the community, and we are thankful and would like to publicly thank everyone that took time. I do believe there was many comments that were emailed in since people were not able to come on our behalf and speak here to the council because of the COVID-19. But we would like to thank each and every person that did take the time in support of us to write emails and comments about us. These are all residents that are here in Chandler. The one thing we are is we are responsible, caring, and transparent. At this time, we would also like to offer an apology to the city, the council, and also to the police for any misunderstanding, negative interactions, or any misinterpretations that we had on March 21st with the police. That is not the way we act. If it was deemed as inappropriate, we do apologize. And Chief, we apologize to you as well. That's not the way we operate. And we spoke on the phone and we try to explain that as well. We all share a common goal: to run a clean, upstanding, law-abiding business that employs City of Chandler residents and generates revenue for the city. As Ephesians 4:32 says, "Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you." We're asking for forgiveness and the opportunity to show you what we are able to do with this business. If there's something that needs to get fixed, we are the first that are ready to fix this situation.
Alejandro, can you please
We're
wrap
done.
up? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And as mentioned, we did receive 52 comments. There were 49 that did oppose denial. 40 of those are Chandler residents. 12 were, actually 12 of the, we had 49 that opposed the denial. It looks like,
I read it as 40 of the 52 were Chandler residents.
yeah, but I'm kind of, there were 3 people that supported the denial that were Chandler residents, and there were 49 that went the other way, and we had 12 non-Chandler residents that also supported you of that group that was mentioned there, of the 40 group there. So I'll make some comments later, but Council, do you have any questions or comments?
Quick,
Councilmember Wong.
a very quick question. When did you assume the ownership?
We assumed the ownership on the 26th of November,
26.
of November of 2019.
Okay, thank you. And did you do this kind of business before?
No, first time.
Okay.
Our first time, first business, first partnership together, and first time ever doing anything with a bar.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor.
Councilmember Stewart.
So can you explain to me a couple of the things here as from the police report? I believe you submitted this, which is a comparison of bars like Sandbar with 48 calls, Jolie's Place with 67 calls, El Zocalo with 57 calls, Aloha Motel with 50 calls, Bourbon Jack with 48 calls, Murphy's Law with 43 calls, Hobnob with 37 calls, Good Time Charlie with 33 calls, 480 Bar with 27 calls, Tom Ryan with 17 calls, and The Reef with 12 calls in 2019. Is this yours?
Yes, so I'm gonna
Okay.
have Sean talk about that, because Sean pulled all the data for the call logs.
Okay, thank you.
So I actually gave you 6 minutes total, but this is a question. Go ahead. State your name and address too, please.
Sean Hoover, address is 819 East Erie Street, Chandler, 85225.
Sean, can you explain to me what a trespassing subject refusing to leave is?
So with cleaning up the bar, we wanted to make sure certain individuals didn't come into the bar. Obviously, the most important one is people previously being intoxicated. We definitely don't want them into the bar. So with those trespass warnings, with being an owner, you have the right to refuse entry to your establishment. So asking them to please leave our premises. And after multiple times on some of these occasions, the person refused to leave. So the next course of action is to call the police.
Okay.
To document that and to get them trespassed from your property for 6 months.
So, and you, according to this, you've had 6 disorderly conduct calls, and that's, I'm guessing, public intoxication, or is it, can you
Correct.
explain?
So as you guys might know, this bar is kind of rough. So Alex and I kind of knew that going into it. We learned more from the police department and other patrons about this bar. And that's kind of our background, is to clean up properties. We're no nonsense type of people. We don't promote prostitution. We don't promote drugs. We don't want any of that in the bar. So kind of the first month or two was us. Yeah, we did call, absolutely, because we wanted to clean up the bar. We wanted to show the people that we're not playing games. We're serious about this. We want this to be a Hispanic bar, somewhere where people can come listen to live music 2 nights a week, have a good time, be a neighborhood bar. And ironically, I live 6 blocks behind the bar. It just happened that I purchased the house, and then the bar became available through a business purchase. So I live in the exact community where the bar is located at. I'm on Erie Street. The bar is in between Erie and Galveston on Arizona Avenue.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, a question I would have for you was the Facebook flyer that went out listed as being sponsored by the bar, but that was at your house?
So according to that flyer, it was a donation party. We were seeing a lot of other bars and restaurants do similar events for their employees. Obviously, I had to lay off my staff. We're not open, so they can't bartend. So those donations, the flyer was in Spanish, and it did say donations. I still have a record of it. Those donations were going to go to the 3 or 4 bartenders and the 3 or 4 other employees. We got a phone call from the city after talking with Alex, and like everyone else, trying to figure out the COVID situation. Is it serious? Is it not serious? What to believe? We decided that we know the best interest of the community that we probably shouldn't have an event larger than 10 people, and we did take down the post, and that party never did happen.
So somebody sent me a copy of that post, and what's sent to me is hurry and sign up, 150 spaces left on the post that was sent to me. I've got a copy of it too. So I guess I'm a little concerned because this also was sent out from, on behalf of the bar, at a private residence. But either way, this was a week after the governor's statement and a week after the police had also talked to you, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
No, you're absolutely right.
So the way Facebook operates is it lets you invite your friends. So where it says 150 spots is where people can sign in and say they're going to attend, and they can invite their friends. There's no adjusting how many spots there are or whatnot. It's just an automatic thing through Facebook where you're able to see the post and invite your friends or tag your friends in the Facebook post.
Okay. But still, you were, on behalf of in the name of the bar, you were hosting an event at your private residence for a large group on behalf of the bar. You're in the name of the bar.
Correct. And like I said, after speaking and figuring out more about what was going on and deciding that that probably wasn't the best situation to have, that post, like I said, was taken down, and no further things happened.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a few questions here. You're operating on an interim license. Is that correct?
Yes, you're correct.
And when was that issued to you?
I believe, I don't have the exact date, but it was in January.
So in January, you were given an interim license to continue to serve alcohol at your bar. Is that correct?
Correct. That's accurate.
So, for me, because I have some history in law and public safety, I would tell you that a liquor license is a very big deal.
Absolutely.
And it's people have to jump through some hoops to get a license. And you all seem to know the history of this facility. And yet, even while you're kind of, I wouldn't say on probation, but you're on an interim license, which is no guarantee that you're going to get a license, with or without COVID, you've clearly violated the liquor laws a little bit with some of the things that you've done. Is that true?
To be honest, if there was no other violations but the COVID incident on March 21st. So again, as Alex said in his speech to you, the mayor posted, and we did follow the city of Chandler Facebook or Twitter, and on March 19th, he did make a speech, or he wrote something saying, yes, bars could be open. And then that was March 19th, that was on a Thursday. Friday, we were following the correct law. Friday is when the governor of Arizona issued his executive order. But with working at the bar hours, getting off at 4 o'clock in the morning, going home, sleeping, waking up, and we already had a private event on the books, we did not see the governor's executive order on Friday night to see what happened on Saturday.
Continue, Mayor.
Please.
Yeah, so I heard everything you just said, except for if you have an interim license and you're trying to clean up a bar that's had a lot of trouble, with or without COVID, without that, let's pretend that didn't even exist.
Okay.
You have an obligation to, if you're having an event and public safety comes to your door, you have an obligation to let them in.
Absolutely.
And so I haven't seen a video. All I can do is go with what the chief has said. You all said there was a misunderstanding there, but clearly there was some untruthfulness. You basically misled the officers a little bit, and there was some talk of actually refunding some of the customers' money as far as their cover charges. So anyway, it's going to be very difficult for me to make a recommendation that you get a liquor license. So that's my.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Orlando.
So you heard several of us up here before you even got up here discuss what other options we have. So obviously, this council, at least some of us up here, are looking for some kind of flexibility in what's going on here. But you're asking us, or you're asking me, I'll just speak for me. I've been doing this a long time, my friend. You're asking me to take your word and the historical perspective of what's been going on over a responsible police officer who I've known a long time. So convince me, convince his counsel. Now, what are you going to do if this bar is open again? And I have to spend these resources, the taxpayers, over and over and over again. And then the truthfulness really bothers me. I'm a fellow umpire, and umpires, you know, we call balls and strikes, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so there is no gray area. So either you deliberately deceived these officers, or you didn't. So try to convince me that this whole thing would go away if we give you this light, or at least recommend. Now, whether the state does their issue is a different story. I haven't heard you convince me yet.
Fair question. Like Alex said, and we, after this, we looked into the proper training, and we hired, I think, his name is Craig Miller. He used to be a detective for the Arizona Liquor Board. We hired his company over the last 30 days to properly ensure that each employee is properly updated and is current on all liquor laws, proper security tactics. We have, like I said, I think the numbers have been going down compared to the other bars that for the same time period, we had 13 calls from January 1st compared to some of the other bars that had 14, 24 calls. I'm also the tax-paying member here in Chandler, and I would hate to keep wasting money on something that wasn't going to be fixed. And like I said, we've spent money on remodeling the bar, which is going to help with the look of the bar, make sure it's a higher class bar now after spending $25,000 inside. The next project was to work on the outside. And then the last thing, as Alex said, we were going to rebrand and rename to kind of get that perception of El Coyote gone with something new.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Council, any additional questions for Alex and Sean, Alejandro and Sean?
Mayor, I have one. What happens if you don't get your license, or if it's suspended for a year, if you don't get it renewed, what happens to that bar?
So that bar will be foreclosed on because we will not have a year's worth of rent, to be frank. We own the property, but obviously we have to make a mortgage payment each month. So due to this COVID thing, I'm not sure what the value of to be honest, I'm not sure what the value of the bar is to anyone, the value of the land. It's zoned for a bar/restaurant, and with all the new socialing rules that's going to probably go into effect, I'm not sure what will happen to the bar. And the city of Chandler will lose a Hispanic bar, which is right where that is, that's Hispanic. The whole neighborhood is Hispanic.
Councilmember Wong.
I'm a person who believes attitude is everything. And I saw that you apologized to our police department. And I saw, at least from your presentation, you look very sincere. And you are also a new owner. And so I think probably you deserve a second chance. And so I'm going to oppose the denial. But at the same time, I don't know what other council member will decide. But if the other council member are with me, I hope that you keep your word. And yeah.
Absolutely, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And that's our clear intentions. That's why we took an extra step to hire someone to consult us. And if this goes through the process, what happens is they're going to become the agent on the liquor license. So if there's any issues, they get the phone call, then they come to us, and we have to fix the issue right away. So we took this step to ensure that we do follow all the Arizona liquor laws, make sure everything's up to date, because we do want to provide something positive for the city of Chandler. And like Alex said in the speech, I'm 31 years old. I grew up my whole entire life here in Chandler. Only reason I didn't go to Chandler High School is because of where I lived in Chandler. It was a Tempe school. My whole family's from Chandler. My brother lives in Chandler, my parents live in Chandler. I think my parents have lived in Chandler 40 years now. So Chandler's home, and we would love to, or I would love to have a business in Chandler, which we got. And like Alex said, we apologize to the police department. That's not who we are. It was a honest, clear misunderstanding, and we definitely would like a second chance.
Council, any additional questions?
Mayor,
Because
City
we will
Manager.
deliberate on our own, so, but go ahead.
City Attorney, on the extension, or if there were an extension of the they have a temporary liquor license, right?
My understanding, if I may, Mayor, council member, my understanding is that has been revoked. The temporary license has been revoked.
It's, okay, and so,
Sorry to interrupt. It's possible to get it back, just to let, if the liquor board approves, then turn back.
okay, but if they were to get like, if one were to be issued by the state, let's say we go this way, they've got that in perpetuity, right? Or does it come up every 3 years, or how does that work with the city?
If I may, Mayor.
We don't have an opportunity to like review. Once it's issued, there's no going, I mean, we don't get to come back in 60 days or 90 days and say, okay, how are we doing?
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, that is correct. Again, the jurisdiction over the license lies with the state. The police department is required to forward reports of incidents that occur at the location and involving that license, but it does not come back to the council once you make this recommendation.
I have one more.
If I can say one thing on that, please?
Yeah, in just a second, what is your plan to fix, one, being rude to what's one of the best police departments in the state, if not the country? What are you going to do to make sure that it's safe and that we don't have calls? And what are you going to do we're a premier city, to be a premier business owner in a premier city? I haven't heard that yet.
Okay. Like Alex said, we did reach out to the chief, and we did speak with him for about 25 minutes, I believe, yesterday. Again, apologized and asked him how we can work together. And he gave, I think, he said just follow the law first to start, and then we could work going forward. And like I said before, we had a good relationship with our beat officers. And then with obtaining this new company for proper training, that will have our staff now knowing the proper ways to do things, which in turn will reduce the call log. And secondly, since the bar kind of now knows that we're not putting up with the drugs, the prostitution, they will not come because we're going to have proper security. We have proper signage now at the door, what we're requiring. And then again, it was me. I take full responsibility for being disrespectful to a police officer. Again, that's not me, but again, there's no excuse. I'm not one to make an excuse. I made a mistake. I can fully admit that in front of everyone here today. I just hope that the one mistake I can at least redeem myself to prove to you guys that it was a isolated incident.
Councilmember Wong.
If you did get your license, if you do have issue, you make sure you do call the police. Don't try to hide it, okay?
No, absolutely, and that's why we want a working relationship with the police, so if we do have an incident, we're not afraid to call or anything like that. And if we do get our license, I would, again, reach out to the chief or the lieutenant for their beat, and just maybe a monthly thing where we can meet with them or discuss anything that they see that we need to be improving on, or anything to make our relationship better.
Thank you.
And can I just say one thing that Mark was talking about earlier? We have to renew our liquor license every year with the state of Arizona. So if there was an issue with that year, I believe that's when you guys are allowed to, I don't think you can protest, but you can ask for a denial of the renewal.
Danielle, is that correct?
Mayor, thank you. I don't believe that is our option for the
Okay.
city. Once, like the attorney said, once we approve it, it's up to the liquor board to deal with anything like that. So we
Okay.
would not be weighing on it again.
All right. Council, any additional questions for our two applicants?
I do have one question. So I was hopeful that I was going to hear positive reinforcement of the change in direction of that location because of the history. And there is some meats and potatoes of things that you've done in action. The thing I struggle with is the bars. It's critical that they have a great relationship with police, because even the best run bars, people get intoxicated and incidents still occur. Doesn't mean they're a bad bar. That's just the nature of drinking in an establishment. The thing I struggle with was the incident. Would you say that the account of Police Chief Duggan was fair and accurate of what went down that night?
90%.
Okay.
There's things I mean, obviously there was a reason why I acted belligerent towards the lieutenant, but that's something I'd rather not. Like I said, I'm trying to amend the relationship here with the police. I don't need to pour more gasoline on a fire. But normal people don't act that way towards an officer unless something was said.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mayor.
So I guess my question or comment is, to you both is, it sounds like the actions you've taken are cosmetic in the bar, trying to straighten that up, getting liquor license stuff, but really, this liquor license falls upon not those kind of things, but your ability in the city's eyes, our eyes, to run a bar. And it seems like the critical mistakes that have been made were not necessarily institutionally, it was judgment on your guys' part. In hosting that, it was the mayor, it was the governor, by the way, that had shut the bar. I did this, but if he was on the same day, Thursday, had made his declaration that went into effect later. So it wasn't me, it was actually the governor that had mandated that bars close, not me in that case. I agreed with him, certainly, but so between that and the actions that day and even the following party, honestly, that's what I'm still struggling with. And my decision will reflect those, and we'll see. But
Mayor.
Councilmember Orlando.
So real quick, Mayor, I heard music is being played twice a week. Do they need a use permit for that?
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, if it's inside, I do not believe they necessarily need an entertainment use permit.
Okay, only if it goes outside the premise.
Right.
Yeah. And then I want to ask the police chief a question, if he could come back up.
I was
here.
going to invite him back up. When we're
Okay,
done
good,
with
that's
these guys.
fine, good. Invite him back up, Mayor.
All right. Any further questions for the applicant? Thank you for cleaning that bar, too.
Thank you.
Councilmember Orlando.
Mayor, after hearing all this, chief, I still want to know your thoughts as a professional.
Well, I'd like to clarify 2 points that were made. One of the points I just heard was that there were no other violations outside the governor's order to close bars, and that's not accurate. The governor's order to close bar applied to everyone in that bar, so everyone was subject to a criminal citation, and that was not done on behalf of the lieutenant's discretion to try to gain compliance. But everyone present in that bar, whether they're drinking or facilitating it or working there, was subject to that violation. In addition to that, all the Title IV liquor codes already apply. Every door that was locked is a liquor violation, a criminal violation. Preventing that officer, again, all this is on body camera. Preventing that officer to enter the bar is a violation. And at the end of the night, when the bar was, when the patrons were exiting, members of the band were moving their equipment out into the back parking lot, one of the members of the band exited the bar with a holstered pistol on his side, which is a criminal violation. And the reason, well, I'm just making an assumption, there was enough there in this police report for the Department of Liquor License and Control to immediately revoke their license. And the other thing I just wanted to just when you talk about experience, so I've been the chief here for 6 years, and it's been many years since a license has been denied. And for a variety of reasons, some historic, I can't speak to the past, but I know I have not denied a license or suggested a license been denied since I've been a chief. But prior to coming here, I was an assistant chief in Scottsdale for 7 years. And before that, I was a precinct commander in the downtown area. I dealt routinely with the bar district, which is 10 times larger than our area. And oftentimes what would cause a bar to have the license revoked was often recurring acts of violence. That is not the case in this particular, that is not the case here. This is even more egregious because it was the actions of the owners that drew our concern. And moving forward, is this an indicator of a partnership, a thriving partnership in the business community between a business and the city, specifically the police department? So that is what's at issue here, and I just wanted to convey that to you.
Any additional questions for the chief? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to make a comment too. I get to weigh both options. I mean, I fully understand that they're trying to get their footing. The two new owners never owned a bar before. But again, some of the, and I do appreciate that, seeking apology and understanding the mistakes you've made. It does make it very difficult that interacting with the police in that way in a city like Chandler is hard to overcome. But I also weigh on this that you are starting out, trying to grab your footing, learning along the way and making mistakes. So we got to weigh that versus, like I said, like most bars right now that are struggling, and you started right at the beginning of the COVID, and it's further hindering you, and denying this liquor license may wind up forcing this into foreclosure, unintended consequences of following through on this. So it is a hard decision for us to weigh on.
Council, additional comments? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. So, there's a thing called nullification when you talk about laws that are significantly, or when you talk about penalties that are given in courts of law that are egregious compared to the offense that has been committed. There's two things at hand right here. One is in this city, we support our police, and we have a chief that's chief of the year from 2018. We have some of the best police forces, like I said earlier, here. And it's very rare, as he mentioned, to recommend something like this happen. We have to weigh the constitutionality of revoking someone's license without going through court, and whether or not the punishment is equal to what a patron did, which is carry a gun. That's not necessarily their fault. You being rude to a police officer, definitely your fault. You holding a party when you probably knew or you didn't know that there was an executive order. You had doors locked, which you should know is against the law for a bar. And so you weigh all these things, and I think to myself, okay, this business, they're going out of business because of COVID. None of this happens if COVID doesn't happen. And so in this particular instance, as bad as this is, if COVID doesn't happen, this problem doesn't happen, or we may get a meeting a year from now where we're talking about 26 calls or 36 calls or 146 calls if it's another bar that was on this list. In this particular instance, it's not about supporting our police chief. It's about nullifying what is something that's going to happen as a direct result of COVID-19. I think we need to find our way to recognize the stress that they're feeling, the stress that everybody up here is feeling, the stress that our police force is feeling, and look to help a business owner and a Chandler resident move forward and have an opportunity to redeem themselves. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Councilmember McClemens.
Well, man, if I could have said the same, you delivered exactly my thoughts. And so I'm in the same category, and I feel like Orlando earlier, Councilmember Orlando was alluding to Is there a path that's not a yes, no? Where you can put some extreme discipline and guidelines on them? And I don't know if there is that path, but it'd be interesting to have a conversation about that path.
Again, Council, we are recommending, and what's been explained by the city attorney, we recommend up or down. Other options might be available, but what the liquor board is looking for is an up or down, as making a recommendation, not making a non-recommendation, is my understanding. Is that correct, city attorney?
That is what the liquor board will look for, yes.
Councilmember Stewart.
Mayor, and this might be help from the city attorney, is there a way to table this so we can get more information to find out if there is a different path that we can take from a recommendation standpoint of a yes or a no? If we can get that direction from the state and stay this for our next meeting?
I don't believe so, in the sense that this came up a month ago, and this was delayed a month ago, and on their part, but city attorney?
And Ms. Wells may have more direct information from the department, so
Yeah.
Mayor, we can extend it. We can do a continuance if you'd like to extend. That would be permitted.
So that is permitted, okay.
It's not like bars and restaurants are going to be open anytime soon, according to the governor's office. So I think we could buy a little time here and get a little bit more data on how we get them a path, and whether that's hiring a police officer full-time on nights when they're going to be busy or whatever that may be. We need to provide them some options under the guise that this COVID thing is unique.
Mayor.
Councilmember Orlando, then Councilmember Wong.
When's it supposed to go before the liquor board?
again, I'm going to defer to Ms. Wells on that.
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, I don't have a date for that at this time.
Can we have the applicant come back up, Mayor? He seems to have his hand up to let us know. You have an answer?
Thank you again. So my understanding is after the city recommends or not recommends, then the liquor board is 15 days prior to that recommendation or not recommendation. And I was told that by Craig Miller, or the company that we retained for consulting.
Mayor, I'm going to bring this up. Let's see if we'll chat about it a little bit. I am not one to sit here and not make recommendations. However, what I'm hearing is strongly worded that our recommendation really doesn't mean very much. So I'm going to recommend that we don't recommend anything to this board. That we are neutral, let the state handle it, and that's my motion.
So, City Attorney, weigh in on that for me.
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, that is a new one on me, I have to tell you. I don't know that the law contemplates that. Again, Ms. Wells looks like she may have some information, so I'm going to let her, if I can.
Yeah, Mayor, we do have the option for no recommendation,
So that is an option.
not recommend anything. And then at that point, what would happen is that the liquor board would not take our recommendation and they would just move forward without our say.
Okay. So we do have a motion on the floor, I believe, by just procedurally, if that is a valid. Is there a second on that before we proceed?
Mayor, which motion are you talking about?
Councilmember Orlando's.
I saw Councilmember Stewart make a motion first.
He did not make a motion.
You did? Okay.
Is there a second for Councilmember Orlando's motion? If not, it dies for lack of second. Council? Hearing none? All right.
Can we ask a question about that?
I think questions are carried after.
After the second?
Yeah, we
Mayor.
need a second.
Yeah, Mayor,
This
you
will be
could-
for
Well,
the-
I'll second it so we can discuss it a little bit.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. The motion is to make a non-recommendation. Okay, discussion. Councilmember Wong, did you have anything further?
Oh, no, I was just trying to clean up that. I saw Councilmember Stewart have already a motion,
Okay.
and then we need to seeking a second, and then, but now you say you don't.
All
Okay,
right.
yeah.
Further discussion before we vote on this?
Well, I was gonna say that I can appreciate that, and like I said, that's actually an interesting path too to take. But I do like the idea personally, and I know this isn't pushing it, but I like the personal idea of actually trying to do a stay and wait and give us another month to do some research. I believe with the state board and maybe even working with the chief that there could be a better solution. We need to be here as a government body to help businesses and look for solutions. There's been some problems here. Let's clean them up. Because again, my worry is the unintended consequences of that going foreclosure and it getting worse. That is my worry for down the road. And so if we were to come forward with a better recommendation, with a good solution that everybody can agree to, that's what I would be seeking for. So that's my opinion.
Good, and that's what I'm
Councilmember
trying,
Orlando.
I'm sorry, Councilmember, pardon, Mayor. That's what I'm struggling with too. Is the board going to go, if they're going to meet in 15 months, 15 weeks? I mean, 15 days, right? They're going to meet in 15 days.
But to clarify, Ms. Wells, that it was
Yeah.
they take it up 15 days after they get the recommendation from us and or decision? Or do they have it on the docket already and we're just getting notified about it 15 days prior to their vote?
Right, that's my.
That I don't know exactly, but once we're finished with our vote, whether we approve, disapprove, or make no recommendation, we would provide that to the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control, and then they would put it on the hearing, on the schedule. I don't know when that would be. And I don't know about the 15-day days that they wait. I'm not aware of that.
Mayor, I'm sorry, thank you. Again, it's, okay, so that's fuzzy, I understand that. But I don't know, and I'm willing, again, you heard my question before, I'm willing to give anyone a chance here. But by the same token, I feel a little bit we're handcuffed anyway, and if we give them another month and they're still closed, what is that going to do? We come back here a month from now, and maybe they get 3 days of opening, what kind of data that's going to bring to us?
So,
And again,
Councilmember Orlando, they currently do not have a liquor license. It was rescinded.
Understand.
So
understand.
they don't have any days until the liquor
So-
license decides.
So bring in 30 days from here, I don't know what that's going to accomplish. I mean, what data are we going to get?
They would not necessarily have an opportunity to reopen.
Yeah.
Just to
Right, so
clarify.
what are we trying to do here? If we, my
We're
point
voting
is-
on their.
No,
their-
no,
oh,
let
sorry,
me
go
let me
ahead.
rephrase the
Oh,
question.
sorry.
It's not to you anyway, it's to
Okay.
the council.
Sorry.
My question is this, what do we gain by giving them 30 days, 60 days, or tabling this thing for more information if they're not going to be operational? What are we going to gain? Maybe I missed something, please enlighten me.
Councilmember McClements.
Look, I'm speculating that by buying time, we can understand if we have the ability to add stipulations that are workable to a recommendation that will ultimately go to the state for them to decide. I.e., for example, every night you have music, you have to hire a Chandler police officer. I don't know if that's a viable solution. I'm just throwing out an example. And so for them to function, they have to commit to that. So then when it goes to the state knows that they have to do that. I don't know if you can do that. I'm just.
Councilmember McClemens, I'm fairly certain, again, and we can clarify that we are a recommending body. We do not make stipulations. They look at our recommendation. They take that into weight upon, they also have their own protest from their liquor license inspector being to the bar, our police's comments. So we're not, this is a simple statement. That's a recommendation. We do not add stipulations onto these types of things. Am I correct?
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember McClimans, what the statute requires is that the city enters an order recommending approval or disapproval within 60 days after filing the application. And if the recommendation is for disapproval, a statement of the specific reasons containing a summary of the testimony or other evidence supporting the recommendation for disapproval. You don't have any legal authority to attach any conditions. What the Department of Liquor will do with them, I don't know, because ultimately they're the ones who issue the license. And they have some limitations pursuant to the statute as well.
So that raises up more questions in the sense that whatever you just read seemed very cut and dry, yet your understanding offered a non-recommendation, so I'm conflicted. Is that even a viable action of ours? I'll go back to that.
Yes, Mayor, we do not have to recommend. We can either approve, disapprove, or make no recommendation.
Okay.
That's correct.
And Mayor, I'm sure what Ms. Wells is relying on is what the Department of Liquor has told her, which is great. I'm just reading from what the statute requires. But if the department accepts a no recommendation, that's.
Okay. So council, any additional discussion before we vote on this? Councilmember Stewart.
We're just voting on Councilmember Orlando's amendment, the motion that was seconded, and then we'll come back to, so we're just voting on whether or not we are going to issue a vote of no comment, and then we're going to come back to the debate overall about.
No, we have a motion and a second. We're now commenting. If we vote on that, that is our action, and then we're done with this action. So when we're done with this comment phase, which once we start stepping over each other, which we're beginning to, I will call for a vote here. But Councilmember Huang.
Yes. So this is what I understand. Councilmember Orlando already make a motion. You already seconded that recommend us make no recommendation. If this pass, then I think it's over. But if this doesn't pass, then we do need to come back to what kind of recommendation we are going to make.
Correct.
Correct. So this continue. So if let's say, for example, we vote no on Councilmember Orlando's recommendation, then we're coming back to whether or not we're going to extend this, whether we're going to vote yes or no. Those are our three options when we come back after we vote on your motion.
We either vote yes on this. If there is a no vote, then we have another motion can be made and seconded to either continue this or a vote yes or no.
Okay. So to debate that, I'm going to be voting no on that, not because I don't agree that it's a good solution. It's because I want to still debate, because it sounds like there's a lot of ambiguity about what this law is and what we can do.
Somebody could withdraw their motion for that to occur.
I have no problem with voting on the motion.
Yeah. So is the second withdrawing
I could withdraw my second and we could just not vote.
Exactly, so we
I'll
can.
do that.
Yeah, and I have no problem, like I said. I was
All
just.
right. So keep me legal, city attorney, but right now we have the motion, the second was withdrawn. Seeing no second, this motion dies without a second.
Correct.
Council, he withdrew the second, and you withdrew the motion. I didn't hear that, I'm sorry, thank you. So there is no motion. Council, is there a motion to be made here?
Mayor?
Councilmember Stewart.
I'd like to make a motion to extend this to our next meeting so we can get more information about our ability to recommend stipulations within the code. And I'd like for our city attorney to look at, well, that's my motion, and then we can debate it.
So, okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I understand what you're doing. I just, is there any, she says no, are there any stipulations to be allowed to add to a recommending motion that you are aware of?
Mayor, I do not believe there is any.
Okay.
No.
So,
Be happy to reach back out if I need to and ask, but I've never read that anywhere in the statutes like we stated. It's really just our recommendations for that, so I don't have that information.
Mayor. So I understand that. I mean, this is the council that we blaze new trails, we do new things. So I think we would definitely like the time to be able to research that a little deeper, see if anybody's tried it before. And again, there may be other ways that we can, either through the business licensing requirements, through other means, that we can put other stipulations on the ownership of the bar, anything, and again, in order to ensure that if the license were to go through, if we were to change a recommendation to approve the license, that we would have at least some I'd say repercussions, but at least some accountability built in on paper. So that's why I also would like to see an extension on this to see if we can at least do some research on that, on any possible avenues. And if it comes back that nothing is nothing, then we have to decide then.
Mayor, if I may,
City Attorney.
we can work with Ms. Wells and we can reach out to the Department of Liquor because that's really who would give us that direction. It's not provided for in the statute or in the regulations, but we most certainly can make the inquiries and see what the response is.
Okay, council, so there is a motion and a second to continue this to the next council meeting. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, please vote.
Motion to continue passes 5-2.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, council. So we will, we have some city attorney, Danielle is going to do some research for us. And we will look at this at our next council meeting. Next on our agenda tonight, and thank you too. Yeah. Next item on our agenda is a briefing, city manager.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. So a few months ago, you did have a settlement agreement on your agenda in regards to VinCon construction, and they had been completed a recent construction project with us. As part of that settlement agreement, there were some recommendations and requests by the council for the city to enter into an outside audit to review our processes and procedures around that. So Dawn is here. We do have the audit completed, and Christy Smith, our chief accountant, is also here, and I'll let Dawn take it from there.
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor and Council, we do have Christy Smith, our accounting manager, here this evening that managed this contract. As Marcia mentioned, this was following a cyber fraud incident in 2019 that resulted in payment to a city vendor paid through an automated clearinghouse method to be sent to a fraudulent account. This review has been completed and the report was provided in your packet. And Christy Smith, I'll turn it over to you to please provide a review of that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Ms. Lang mentioned, I'm Christy Smith, the accounting manager, and here to provide a briefing on the accounting procedures review completed by our auditors, Heinfeld Meach. Staff worked to provide documented procedures and forms for Heinfeld Meach's review and are currently working on implementing procedure and form changes as a result of the report we received. Overall, I believe the results are positive and reflect that there are reasonable procedures and processes in place. Within the report, the executive summary on page 4 included 6 key report recommendations, and the memorandum that was provided also includes staff's action for each item. The first recommendation was to explore the usage of secure portals for transmission of information between the city and employees, vendors, and customers. Staff has been and will continue to research the ability to provide access to employees, vendors, and customers through secure portals within our financial software. Our next opportunity would be in conjunction with an Oracle upgrade coming later this fall or early next spring. The second recommendation was that employee direct deposit setup and changes should be verified via phone when not initiated on city premises when city employees can perform identity verifications. Written procedures at this point have been updated to include verification by phone for forms not verified in person. The third recommendation was to require vendors requesting ACH payments to provide void checks or banking letters. Staff have been requesting void checks prior to processing ACH forms. However, the forms themselves did not indicate that requirement was such as necessary, and at this point, the ACH form have been updated, including a statement that the bank letters are also acceptable documentation in addition to a void check. The fourth recommendation was that the vendor ACH setup requests and changes should be verified via phone and documented on a vendor confirmation form. Upon learning of the incident last summer, we immediately implemented phone verification for vendors. In addition, we have now prepared a verification of banking information form for payroll, accounts payable ACH, and accounts payable wire transfers, and is being completed for every ACH setup request and change. This form also requires a secondary supervisor review prior to initiating the ACH. The fifth recommendation was that the standard forms and procedure documents should be updated to reflect implemented recommendations. All forms and documents have been reviewed and have been or are being updated to reflect the implemented recommendations. The last recommendation was that the review of change verifications and system change log information should be performed by city management. This is in addition to the secondary supervisor review that we already are implementing as part of the verification of banking information form. And staff is currently researching on how we can best obtain this information from our financial software and review it. Overall, the recommendations provided by Heinfeld Meach are being researched and many have already been implemented. Some are a little bit easier to implement than others and some require additional research. I would like to give a special thank you to the staff in accounting, human resources, information technology, and management services administration for their assistance throughout this process review and implementation and research regarding the implemented and recommended changes, and a thank you to Mayor and Council for the opportunity to provide an update to you.
Thank you, Christy. Council, are there any questions or comments?
Mayor,
Councilmember Orlando.
thank you for the update. I read the report, appreciate it. The only question I have for you then is, do we have a time frame to implement all these? Is that available?
The one question that we have at this point that hasn't been answered yet is what sort of reporting we can get from our software on the change logs and audit information. And then the second piece is implementing portals, which is certainly much more time intensive and requires multiple divisions to work together. So that one will take the longest amount of time.
So again, but the pertinent issue here of doing this again, you already have safeguards in place. This other stuff will just enhance the actually workload in your case, right?
Correct. The issue, if the best practice that could have been in place at the time when the issue occurred would have been the phone verification,
Right.
and that was immediately implemented upon finding the issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
I want to thank you and Dawn for the work that you've done. I know that there are an incredible amount of attempts to hack into our system and every other system, and probably even more so now that there are more idle hands out in the community that are looking. So I want to thank you for our ongoing efforts and recommendations to protect our taxpayers and our city from fraud. So thank you. All right. Council, next is on our agenda is unscheduled public appearances. Since we don't normally see if they're here, I will defer to our city clerk if we have any unscheduled public appearances. What a time to leave.
No, we did not receive any unscheduled public appearance
Okay.
comments.
Next on our agenda are announcements. I have a few and then we'll continue. Do want to welcome you all to join us next week on our Chandler Family Virtual Bike Ride. So to encourage physical distancing, the Chandler Family Bike Ride will now be a week-long virtual community event set for April 27th through May 3rd. Participants are encouraged to register online and to take their bike on a bike ride along a Chandler Trail, park path, or street between these dates. If you are out of town, figure out a way to also take a bike ride and send pictures in. Participants are encouraged to register online to take their family on a bike ride on any Chandler path on these dates. Goodie bags will be given to those who participate, and we will be following hashtag Bike Chandler to follow everyone's fun experience. Next, city updates. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected our community and our city operations in a variety of ways. The safety of our residents has been and will continue to be our top priority as we implement guidelines from the state and national levels. Following this meeting tonight, we will be discussing staff recommendations on how to reactivate services and facilities in our city. And tomorrow during our all-day budget briefing, we will look at COVID-19's impact on our budget and how we plan to adjust it throughout the next year. So, Councilmember Stewart.
Mayor, thank you. And I just want to commend our public safety in being prepared for this COVID crisis, but I'm also want to make a comment to our community. I've never seen so many people just like line up and step up to help in so many ways, and the positive comments and the positive feedback that I'm hearing about the city and the chamber and everyone locking arms and trying to move forward and get through this has been remarkable. So let's keep it up. We got some time ahead of us where we're going to continue to have to do this, but thanks to the community and thanks to Chandler for that.
Councilmember McClemens.
Arizona lost a legend this week. Tex Earnhardt passed away Saturday at the age of 89 at home, surrounded by his family. Tex Earnhardt's American success story. He was born in September 9th, 1930, growing up in rural Texas near the Rio Grande Valley. He and his family moved to Chandler, Arizona during his teenage years. In 1951, he became the youngest person to ever receive a Ford franchise. Earnhardt was founded on September 4th, 1951, right here in Arizona. His business enterprise has grown exponentially ever since. The Earnhardt family has asked that in lieu of flowers or gifts, that cards can be sent in his memory, and any monetary donations made in Tex's memory to the Chandler Compadres. And just, I'm a Chandler Compadre myself, and we're a member-run organization, so we have no expense. We do all the work ourselves. So if Tex Earnhardt touched you in any way, and you feel touched to make a donation, just know that that money's going to go out to disadvantaged kids in our community. In this healthcare crisis that's caused a financial crisis, I can assure you there's charities that will need it. And so, and that ain't no bull. So my heart is with his family. Stay healthy, take care, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
As a follow-up with condolences to the Earnhardt family and friends. He was definitely a treasure for Chandler. I have nothing else. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Wong.
I just want to use this opportunity to wish our community stay safe, stay healthy, and if you really have nothing better to do, call your family member you haven't been calling. Be nice to your parents, your wife or husband or your daughters or sons. And read a book you haven't got a chance to read. Watch the movie you haven't got a chance to watch. So that's what I was doing. I hope you do the similar too. Thank you.
Councilmember Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to mirror a little bit of what Councilmember Huang said. These are trying times for many people, and I would just recommend that people give a little extra allowances to others at this time to try and make it a little bit better, a little easier path for all. Also want to give condolences to Matt, Councilmember Orlando, for his loss of his mother, and tell everybody to be safe and care for each other. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Orlando.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing tonight, and thank you, Councilmember Rowe, and the rest of you for your sympathy and support. Appreciate it.
City Manager.
Mayor, I have no comments for this meeting, except to let you know that staff is asking for about a 5-minute break to get the Dr. Flanagan on the phone for your next meeting.
Council, we'll see how long Dr. Flanagan is able to be with us. She was originally scheduled at 6:30 and she had other commitments, so we'll see. That concludes this meeting. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes.